Well, here we are once again. It's a rainy day here in Perth, so I thought I'd spin you another yarn. It's a little poem I wrote. I've called it Stumpy Meets the Killer. Stumpy Baxter was a swaggy who loved the open road. He was short and somewhat stocky and could hump a heavy load. He had a few bob in his pocket and some tucker in his swag. He was looking for a job or two and was down to his last fag. A poster on a barbed wire fence caught his sharp and steady eye. The prize you win is 50 quid if you ain't afraid to die. He read a little further, for this surely was a joke. He'd sell his soul for 50 quid and take on any bloke. The fight was being set up by some fella from the city, and his fighter, Killer Kelly, would show no man his pity. He had heard of Killer Kelly when working in the shearing game. Killer came down to the country to put working blokes to shame. He read a little further to see what he must do. The fighter must be standing when the ref would end round 2. Now Stumpy in his younger days made the carnival his home and had tried his hand at wrestling till he set out on his own. The challenge would be taking place in a country town nearby, and Stumpy didn't give a second thought. He'd give his luck a try. He'd wrestled kangaroos before to earn himself some pay. Sometimes he came off second best and bears those scars today. He'd even tried his hand once at being a jackaroo and tried to learn some riding skills on a flaming old emu. So he ain't afraid of trying or of landing in a heap. But the best thing he could do today was get a good night's sleep. Early in the morning, he set out on his way. If he did a good day's trudging, he could be in town next day. The sun was midday in the sky when Stumpy made it into town. Big banners flew along the street and the population groaned. Stalls were being set up for bookies and for food, and all of Killer's keepers were a shifty-looking brood. But that didn't worry Stumpy. He had seen their type before. He still believed he had a chance to knock the killer to the floor. The crowd slowly started moving to the hall just down the street, their money not on Killer, and they prayed for his defeat. From the outset it was obvious, rules were not allowed, but the last man must be standing, and this pleased the eager crowd. There were 4 men taking Killer on. Stumpy made the number 5, all were hoping to be winners and to leave the ring alive. The first 4 fought him long and hard to take away the prize. For the first round, Killer egged them on, but round 2, the big surprise. The Killer would come thrashing in, off from the ropes he came. He would knock opponents flying and then end their chance at fame. The time then came for Stumpy to step inside the ring. The crowd all groaned in sympathy. They could hear the angels sing. A cheer went up from Killer's back as Stumpy knew it's not for him. He turned towards the cheering mob and saw the Killer's sickly grin. He was like a man-made mountain, well over 6 feet tall. It would take a lot from any man to make this Killer fall. He thought he would be fairly safe until the bell would end round 1. But when the bell would start round 2, Killer wouldn't fight for fun. He had to play the Killer's game, save his strength until round 2. His life would be in danger, but he had to see it through. Killer thought this was an insult to see Stumpy next in line. He'd take him in the first round, and all in record time. Killer off the ropes came flying like a man on a trapeze and clobbered Stumpy with a whack that brought him to his knees. Killer charged in for the second time. He wouldn't play around. He would land on top of Stumpy and pin him to the ground. Stumpy lay down flat upon his back and kicked his legs up in the air. He knew he kicked the Killer, but he wasn't sure just where. He heard the mob start shouting and saw him jumping all around. He could hear the Killer moaning in a sickly sort of sound. He must have kicked the Killer where no man can stand the pain, and for sure he won't be standing up on his feet again. The ref then gave a count of 10. The mob charged into the ring, held Stumpy high above their heads as if he was a king. The township honoured Stumpy for the great thing that he did, But Stumpy didn't care for that. He had him 50 quid. So one day in your travels you may see a country town with a statue of a swaggy and on his head a crown. You will know the story you have heard is honest and is true, and if you ask the town folk, they'll spin the same yarn back to you. That's it. That's Stumpy meets the killer.